Got a good news, bad news scenario here. Good news is we're talking to Bill Barnwell. Bad news for us is that it's not face-to-face anymore because you've headed north to Boston. But this, Bill, is one of the most anticipated articles, I think, of the year. Teams that are going to take a step forward and teams that are going to take a step back. Now, we could go good news, bad news here. Let's go good news and make some fan bases happy, shall we?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and let's begin with the team, and we'll go NFC, then AFC. The team that you believe will make the biggest step forward in the National Football League this year is
the Chicago Bears, Scott. And not surprising, they were the worst team in football last year, but they were better than people gave them credit for. They were 1-6 last year in games decided by 7 points or less, which typically regresses back towards the mean. You're typically about 500 in those games year after year. They were better against tough competition than people remember. They played the Dolphins, the Lions, even the Eagles close deep into the fourth quarter. And hey, they added a ton this offseason, more cap space to work with than anybody else in football. They make the trade to move down. They get DJ Moore, a legit #1 receiver for Justin Fields. You bring in Yannick Ngakoue to help the pass rush. NFC North is wide open, Scott. I think everyone thinks they're going to get better. I just think they might have even more upside, maybe even playoff upside relative to what people are expecting.
Significant steps forward for the Chicago Bears. It makes sense given everything that you just laid out, particularly the NFC North. It suddenly feels more open than it has in years past. All right, a team who is going to take a step forward and a team that's going to benefit a lot from health is who?
The Los Angeles Rams. Scott, you remember last year, they were down to third-string linemen by December. You had Baker Mayfield on a cross-country flight, putting the reading light on and learning the playbook over the course of 4 or 5 hours, and they were still winning games in December. They were beating the Raiders. They blew out the Broncos in December. They were better at the end of the year than I think their record indicated. Now you get a lot of those linemen back. You get Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald back. Don't know who's going to play defense around Aaron Donald, so I don't know if they're going to be exactly the Super Bowl team we saw from a couple years ago, but they can be a more competitive team in the NFC West than I think people believe right now.
So the Bears can't lose as many close games. The Rams can't lose as many people, and that's part of the reasons why you see them moving on. As we move to the AFC, not moving on, but getting better, I should say. Teams that will improve in the AFC, where do we start?
Let's start with the Denver Broncos, Scott, and let's start with the guy they hired to fix their very messy quarterback situation, and that's Sean Payton. And the number for me that's important here is 17-4. That's Sean Payton's record over his final few seasons in New Orleans with Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill, and Jameis Winston as his starting quarterback. So when he didn't have Drew Brees, he was still winning football games. To me, I think Russell Wilson, maybe he can't be Drew Brees, maybe he can't be the guy the Broncos were expecting, but he can be that second caliber of quarterback. You add in the upgrades on the offensive line, a defense that was second in the NFL in points per possession allowed before the final month of the year when they collapsed. This could be a team that's more complete than I think really they look like coming off of a disastrous 2022 season.
Yeah, I don't know how you quantify pressure, but I think there's more of it on Russell Wilson's shoulders this year than any other star player in the NFL. He's got to be better. If he's not, then I don't know how it gets fixed. But you think it will get fixed. As for the final team from the AFC, that gets better. Who is it?
It's the Cleveland Browns. And I know people are skeptical of Deshaun Watson, and they should be. He was bad last year. There's no question. But before Watson got into the lineup, that team was playing pretty well. They were 9th in the NFL per ESPN's Football Power Index metric. Now, maybe I'm just being naive. I'm choosing to believe that what we saw from Watson over the final few seasons before that mediocre performance last year tells us more about what the player he's going to be this upcoming year. They have a full offseason to work with Kevin Stefanski. They have the best running back in football in Nick Chubb, one of the best offensive lines in football. And then I love bringing in Jim Schwartz, a defensive coordinator who's been great at molding young talent in Detroit, in Tennessee, and most recently winning a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. This team has a ton of first and second round picks on defense who need to take a step forward. I think Schwartz gets the most out of them. And hey, the AFC North's going to be tough, but they can get 10 wins. Maybe that's enough to get them back in the postseason.
That's the challenge to me, is their division. I think that's a very rugged division where there's not a single bad team in it. Bill Barnwell, you know what's cool is you're seeing more of him on other shows because shows finally got smart and they saw Pay the Bill. They've been reading this guy's column. You've been 80% on these sort of who's going to get better, who's going to back up. So we spread a little sunshine to some fan bases, Bill. Teams that'll improve. Appreciate the time, man. Be well. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.